Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm Kathy, your host for today, and we have a guest that's been on before. It's been some time, so she definitely was one of the favorites, so I asked her to come back. She does a little bit of a lot, as most of us do over time. She's a psychotherapist. She holds meditation classes, and she does some energy work. So we're going to talk with her today, though. Her name is Gail Carpenter. So it's been a while, though, so we were chatting the other day, though, just to kind of catch each other up to speed, see, because it's been a few years. So we'll just get right into it, though, how she gets started. She's a dear friend of mine, too, though, so that kind of helps, though, too. So, Gail, so did you start so let's just start. How did you get started on this business?
Well, I think from a young age, I was physically and psychologically open. My mind was open. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of times we see things as a coincidence or whatever. So mm-hmm. a lot of those types of things would happen. And then, as many people know, sometimes a traumatic incident can also increase, or a near death, or, those types of things can increase the amount of psychic things that come through, mm-hmm. or precognitive, however you want to look at that. Yeah. And so I did have a pretty traumatic event when I was 15 years old, and didn't talk about it for a long time. And after that, I started having a lot of interesting things happen in the dreams. And I just want to preface some of this by saying, I believe we all have the ability to do this. Some people, it just starts happening. Other people learn. I'm a member for many years at the Lilydale Assembly.
Of New York, right?
Right, of New York. And so I have got a certificate in mediumship from Celeste Elliott there. And there are a lot of great classes there for people if they are interested in learning, and a lot of them are free too. So at 15, what started happening was I would fall asleep and I would have these dreams. And what would happen in the dreams is, it's like those glow sticks that the kids used to play with, and the green glow stick, whatever it was that was coming through, that would be like an aura around it. So I'll give you an example. When I was in my late teens, like 19 or so, I moved to California. And I had a dream that my father and I were in this very cool bookstore in Santa Cruz where I was living. And we were in the sailing section, and he went to reach up for a book, and I looked over at him, and his frames on his glasses were glowing. Mm-hmm. So that was back in the day when, we didn't have cell phones, yeah. And my parents would call on the weekend, and one would be on one end of the line and another on the other. So we were talking, and right before we started to hang up, I said, "Oh, Dad, did you get new glasses?" And he said, "No." So the conversation went on, and right before we hung up, my mother said, "Oh, Gail, wait. He didn't get new glasses, but he dropped them on the floor, and the frames broke. He didn't need the lenses, but he needed new frames." Okay. So that was one instance. Another instance was there were these elderly women that lived next door to us growing up that were wonderful, Aunt Hazel and Aunt Mabel. Mm-hmm. And on a whim, they had 100 acres in this old farmhouse, and when they were in their 70s, they decided they wanted to live in La Jolla, California. So
sounds almost like a TV show.
Right? So they sold everything and moved to La Jolla. Well, obviously, that's also back when we didn't have the internet, so we were writing letters. Yeah. So I was waitressing. I was about 18 then, and I was waitressing in a local restaurant in Canandaigua in the Finger Lakes, and the dream was that they came in and sat at a deuce, a two-top, and I was waiting on them. And every time I would go over, Aunt Mabel would have this like light green mist around her, but she kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller till the last time I went over, she was no longer there. She had disappeared, but Aunt Hazel was there. So I called my mother, because my mother and I used to have identical dreams sometimes, and we'd discuss them in the morning at breakfast, and told her what happened, and she said, "Oh, that's interesting." 3 days later, she called me back and said, "I have to tell you, I got a letter from Aunt Hazel that Aunt Mabel has passed away." Okay. So sometimes they'd come in that way. Yeah. But it also changes. Like all of a sudden, I wasn't getting those dreams anymore, and I was sort of disappointed because I thought, oh, does this mean I'm not going to keep knowing, like there was a nail in my tire, I had a dream about it, it was glowing, right? That kind of thing. But what it did was it transferred into something else.
Okay.
I started meditating a lot from the time I was 16 till present. And I really believe meditation, and it doesn't have to be intense meditation, can help open up our third eye and the ability to time travel and do different things. So when it changed, part of what happened was a lot of the messages I get, I do energy healing. So I do Reiki, quantum touch, and crystal healing, and do hands-on work. And so a lot of times what happens is when I'm working on people, that's when these messages will come through.
Yeah, that's common.
Yes. And my father was a surgeon who is on the other side, and I'm a spiritualist, so I believe in life after passing or transitioning on this side. And he's with me a lot as far as when I'm doing healing and guiding me. And I'm just a conduit for the healing, so the entities pass through me to help the people that I'm working on. But a lot of times things will come up. I can tell you this one funny story that won't break confidentiality at all. And I was working on a friend, actually, and as I'm working on her, I keep getting this thing about the basement, the basement, the basement. And like Celeste would tell us in our mediumship classes, you know, don't disregard anything because you don't always know why it's coming through or what it means. So at the end, I said, so-and-so, I have to ask you something. Is there something going on in your basement? And this individual had an organic farm. And what had happened was they were raising chickens, but they had got little ones, or eggs, right, to hatch. And the incubator actually had gotten turned up too high, and they all passed away. And they felt so bad about it. But if I hadn't said something about the basement, you know, I never would have known that that happened. And so,
so can you just go over the Reiki and the quantum touch?
Well, the Reiki, I studied with a few different people here locally, one person. I did Reiki 1 and 2. And then my third, for the masters, I did that with William Rand. Okay. And
so he's also out of New York, right?
Pardon me?
So William Rand is out of New York, right? William Rand?
Well, William Rand, he actually is in Hawaii, based in Hawaii, but he does seminars. Like I took this particular seminar in Boston. Okay. And so one of the things with all of it is it all is energy and vibration, because I do a lot of work with tuning forks too, and Hertz music. I really recommend people look up Hertz music. It will change your lives in a lot of ways for a lot of different things. And you can go right to YouTube and find that. But the energy, it's like the majority of people I know that use their ability often will get what feels like, it's not a cold chill, but you'll feel energy coming through your body. And that's a sign that spirit is with me on some level, or a spirit is with me. And so with the Reiki, it's like that as well. You know, there's certain hand positions on the body for healing, and the energy will go where it's needed. The quantum touch is a little bit different, but also very interesting. I use more of my breath with that, and I trained with, give me a second, I'll go back to that. But he's well known, and he actually developed quantum touch as a whole base of.
Is that administered like Reiki though, or is this different?
Yes, it's a little bit different, but I often combine the two. Okay. So you are getting energy running, and we use the breath more. So say you had a hurt shoulder, I might put my hands on my shoulder and it would be something like that.
Okay.
And that pushes the energy through. But it's also, you're allowing a conduit for, you're still just a conduit for healing as it comes through.
Okay.
And that was an interesting training for sure. I went to Macau University, which is a small country off Hong Kong. And he happened to be teaching, Richard Gordon is his name.
Okay.
He happened to be teaching the last course there that I needed to take. And I thought, well, why not? So
You were there.
and then for the crystal healing, which I love very much, I used Emma Fanuff, who
Okay.
I think you know
know
of
her,
her, and she's just wonderful and lovely. She's I think still in Providence.
Pawtucket last, I believe.
Oh
last I
yeah,
know.
yeah. And I met a lot of those people when I was going to the East Providence Spiritualist
Okay.
Church.
Yeah, it's too bad that they're
I
not opening them
know,
at that location.
I know.
I love
I
that
miss
location
them
too.
a lot, and I still am in touch with a lot of the people
Yeah.
there. It was a really good group,
Yeah.
and we all became very close. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to the crystal touch. So what is that? Is that using crystals?
Yes.
Okay.
So, like the past 2 days, I've been working with patients or clients, however you want to term it, doing energy healing. And I did a combination of Reiki, crystal healing, and quantum touch. The only thing I find you have to be careful with is you don't want to overdo it because it can be too much for people.
Yeah.
So, like, say I have somebody come in and they are going through grief. And it's a big part of this is not having energy stuck in your body somewhere to be able to release it.
Yeah.
And so I always let them know, if you are going to cry or laugh, just let it out. And I'll usually start with the Om tuning forks, which sends a whole vibration through the body, and it kind of harmonizes it. And then there's a whole setup for the crystal healing as far as a big piece of selenite underneath the massage table with 2 pointed crystals, going out. And then I'll lay crystals depending on what's going on. Like I had a woman who was having some stuff come up at the anniversary of a grief, of a loss. And so I used Apache's tears, which there's a beautiful legend and story with the Apache's tears. I may use rose quartz if they're having trouble loving themselves or need to love themselves more. But there's a crystal for everything, and they're very powerful. People forget that there's crystals in our computers and in so many things, and huge in our earth.
Yeah, yeah. All those caves that you're still in, though. Yeah.
And I've also had, I think the other thing that comes with the meditation is often being able to. Because a lot of this all comes back to quantum physics. Okay. And quantum physics can be complicated, and I'm not a physicist, but I love talking to physicists. And but it's about energy, and it's all the things that Einstein and I'm blanking on. It'll come. He was a very famous man who passed away, who had a lot of answers for everything, and Edison kind of took over some of his stuff for the light bulb, but very wise physicist. And
not Einstein, right?
No.
Okay.
But I think a lot of times it's a lot about the energy, and about maintaining the energy for our own health and knowing when we need to release things. And
so how do you think this applies, the energy work applies to the quantum physics, or quantum physics applies to the energy stuff?
Okay, so that's what I was getting to before I got sidetracked myself, so I
didn't
apologize.
Mean to rush ahead.
So when I'm meditating, and often meditating with clients and that sort of thing, as you meditate, and it can happen in the beginning or it can happen over time, right? But a lot of times you'll come into what is a portal. It's almost like a black hole, if you will. And I've been able to travel through that to have an out-of-body experience in the sense of being out in space, being able to look back at Earth.
Okay.
And also have had the experience of, Shirley MacLaine talked a lot about the silver cord. And I was pretty young, and I remember, I think she was on Johnny Carson being interviewed, and he was kind of teasing her, and she talked all about this silver cord. Well, I kind of put it on the back burner, and lo and behold, when I was going to graduate school at Syracuse, I was sleeping over at this place I stayed one night a week, and I used to meditate a lot then because I was getting better grades meditating before tests.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I felt my body kind of come out and slide up the wall because it was against a wall. And
Oh, you were meditating against the wall?
yeah, because I was lying in bed, getting ready to fall asleep.
Okay.
Because that's a really good time to manifest when you're in that kind of almost dream state.
Yeah.
So I felt my body slide up the wall, and then it took off, and I was like, whoa. But what was very interesting was all of a sudden I realized there was a silver cord that I was attached to. And I remember thinking, oh my God, Shirley MacLaine was absolutely right about this. And so that was very interesting because I was able to like project over a city and look all around. And then what happened, and I've talked to other people that have had this experience, many people have, and all of a sudden I got a little bit scared because I'm like, well, how am I going to get back? But as soon as I had that feeling, it was like someone pressed a button and
pulled you back,
recoiled it in. Yeah. So
It's interesting because it looks like a braided rope to me, though, the cord. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, not everyone sees it as a silver.
Yeah, because I did get like a silver kind of smooth cord
Yeah.
that was attached to me somehow, which
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's through my umbilical cord or where.
I think it's around that area, though. Yeah.
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 And certain things you don't always get again. I can remember seeing Wayne Dyer while he was alive at Lilydale years ago when there was hardly anybody, you know, he wasn't super famous then.
Yeah.
And there were maybe 50 or 75 of us there, but he was talking about how he had an out-of-body experience again, and he always wanted it to happen again, but that he got it other ways, different things happen, but not that particular one. I also think so much of it, I always tell people and clients that you can manifest whatever you want to manifest. You just have to practice. And James Redfield, I went to a seminar at Lilydale with him a few years ago, and I was shocked at first because I thought they'd have to have it in the auditorium because there'd be like probably 200 people, but there was only 20 of us. And the first thing he asked of the 20 people is, how many people here never have to look for a parking spot? And everybody's hands went up except maybe 2 people.
Yeah.
And what that's about is if you manifest, you can manifest parking spots, and it's a really easy thing to learn with and to do. And you never stop doing it because
No, you don't. Because they still do it. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I'll tell people, do. Just start thinking before you leave your house of where you're going and a spot that you want. And so I thought it was an interesting point that he brought up right away because that's what a lot of people learn with, I think, is that.
And then we always have to go places, though, so you know everyone can connect with that. It's like, hey, I need a parking spot, and most of us don't want to like go on the parking like 10 times just for a spot that's halfway close. That's what the store
That's very true,
you
and
know?
especially in Newport. And I've never,
Newport's
when I've
definitely,
gone to the Providence Place Mall, I've always asked and meditated on the way to get one right in front of the first level where you go up by Apple, and I've never not gotten one.
Yeah, sometimes the people are like, it can't be that easy. I'm like, just try it.
Yeah, well,
It really
and then
is.
one time I had to go around one loop, but but then it was there.
Yeah,
so.
that's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad, especially for like a parking garage.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
But I think, you know, I want people to be comfortable with it, and it's not something I ever, you know, I think people need to want to do it or learn it, and to also know how not to be scared of it. I think it happens. My daughter's very talented with it, but she's just not ready to use it a lot yet.
Yeah.
And she will be at some point, but it's a different time for everybody when they use it.
Yeah, so you can't make somebody do it. They got to do it on their own.
Right,
kind of thing.
right.
I know you've been meditating since college, but how did you get started with the meditating?
Actually, it was in high school, and a good friend of mine, Robert Elliott, handed me a book, The Tao, and it was all about
DAO?
TAO.
Oh, okay.
And the Tao,
Yeah.
Tao. Anyway, it was all about meditating, and a lot of us, because when I went to school, in high school, it was the 70s, right?
Okay.
So it was all about peace and love, and some of the hippie stuff left over, and everybody was, you know, doing a lot of meditation and stuff. So that that was a real eye-opener, and I just think it's a really important thing for people to do. I do a lot of adjustment to medical illness work,
Okay.
and so for people to be able to control pain and relieve pain.
And all that confusion.
Yeah, and John Kabat-Zinn, that's why he started it at Mass General. Well, was for back
meditation?
pain.
Oh,
for back
okay.
pain. He developed mindfulness.
Oh, okay. There.
And so, and I think just we have a lot of anxiety and depression right now in the country.
Yeah.
And it can be very, very helpful because people are using social media too much, and it's affecting them a lot, and it can help them stay more in the moment.
Yeah.
And in their own.
Yeah, that's something that's very unprecedented, though. But it's starting to see the effects of it now. You know, the kids are born in technology, though. It's like with something in your hand at 5 years old.
Yes.
You know, when I was going to school, though, you know, the internet was a big deal, the dial-up. And people look at me like, are you kidding? I'm like, that's how internet started. And they just look at me like, you can tell who the really young kids are, though. You know, because they don't even know what that is anymore, the dial-up. It was noisy with the modem and all. But anyway, I digress. So, but it's
Well,
like,
but no, because I remember seeing an interview with Bill Gates was talking, I think on 60 Minutes or something, but they played it maybe a year ago again, and what it was about was him telling people there's going to be this thing called email, right?
what a concept.
I know, and so we've only seen the tip of all of it.
I think so, yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to be an experiencer with UFOs, and
no kidding.
so have a lot of people that grew up in the Canandaigua area, but none of us talked about it much at all.
Where's the Canandaigua area?
In the Finger Lakes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's
okay.
happening all over, everywhere, in different hot spots and things, but there's a lot more, like Dr. Stephen Greer has been very involved with that, and Whitley Strieber, and there's just too many reports for too long, but it gets complicated, but.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt that, you know, the aliens have always visited us. There's a theory, though, that the aliens will help us with the pyramids.
Yes.
I don't know if that was ever proven yet, though. But, I mean, there was a theory on that, though. And I don't know why people think they stopped coming.
Right.
You know, but they're coming back again, all these reports.
Well, and what's really interesting is if you look at the world and the way the ley lines are set up.
Okay.
And one of the things I never knew a lot about ley lines, and I still don't know a lot about them, but I'm very curious and interested in them.
Yeah.
And they're coordinates that the pyramids have a line and coordinate that matches up with other very high powerful.
Yeah, the spiritual points, so
right.
like Stonehenge is one of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And what was very interesting was when I started looking at those, every single place I ever lived in the United States without realizing it, and I think out of the country too, was where there was a ley line.
Huh, interesting.
And where I had seen the first UFO was at a ley line that existed right in Canandaigua Lake in front of the Notre Dame Retreat House.
Yeah.
Which is a retreat house for the monks and the priests.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it was by accident, though, even though you didn't plan for that.
What was that?
It doesn't. It sounds like, though, that it wasn't by accident, even though you didn't plan for it.
Right.
You know?
No, I don't think it was by accident. I think it, however that works, you know.
Well, it's just from my understanding, though, we all make a soul contract before we come, so we plan all that out, though. We don't usually remember it, and I'm pretty sure that's on purpose, you know, so we can actually fulfill what we agreed to. So, you know, I'm sure there's a past life in there somewhere with the ley lines, though.
Well, and I know I've had some very interesting experiences still with the people that I believe are my relatives that are from a different galaxy. And
So you think you're Sasid?
I have my father and myself, and then other relatives were from the ninth dimension.
Okay.
And
okay. It's a little
but that gets complicated too, because there's so much time involved and so many.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much to this, though. You can't learn everything.
No,
it's just too much.
No,
Yeah.
and I think that's one reason why I was very flattered that you called and asked. And I was a little nervous, but I thought, you're 68 now, so
Yeah.
it's like you're either going to do it now or you're not going to do it. So I appreciate you having me.
Of course, so it's a pleasure having you here. So the other thing I wanted to ask about too, though, what was it though? So do you integrate any of this holistic stuff though into your practice though when you're dealing with mental health clients?
That's a very tricky question, okay? Because let me just say this. When I went to Harvard to learn and do a seminar with Dr. Daniel Brown about mindfulness, we never thought at that point in time, and that was back in the 90s, I think, that we would ever be able to incorporate mindfulness into psychotherapy. And look at it now.
Yeah.
It is all there. And there will be a lot of times over the course of my 30-year career where I will ask certain questions and the client or patient will say to me, "Are you psychic?" And I won't, I'll
Yeah, because you
I
can't
don't
really put
know.
that into it. Yeah.
No. And so, but I mean, it helps in certain respects, but you have to be very careful about using it. The meditation, we're using it all the time. And
I know a lot of schools that have that now, even for the younger grades.
well, and there was I wish I could remember the principal's name in New York City. She decided to have the kids come in her school and meditate for 5 minutes before they started school. And within a few weeks, the violence decreased, the acting out decreased, the happiness increased, people were paying more attention, so.
Yeah, there was a direct correlation though with that though.
Say that again?
There was a direct correlation. So when you slow the brain, like the mind just enough that way it can actually focus. And I think that's what meditation is for that though, because like some of us though, like, I mean, I have to slow down sometimes and still think of doing it myself, even though I don't practice meditation, even though I know I should. So probably like one of the worst ones for that. Sometimes I just have to just stop and just gotta kind of empty my brain, And I know that's a way of doing meditation, just not the traditional way to do it.
Well, there's so many different ways to do it. I think one thing I really like that John Kabat-Zinn said in one of his books is if you just feel your breath for 5 seconds a day, you've meditated. And so I think sometimes people get overwhelmed that I'm not going to know how to do it right, that I don't have the time to do it. But it's kind of funny when we think about time, because how much time do we spend, watching a TV show or commercials or whatever it is, so.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can do it anywhere. That's the other thing. You don't have to have a special room or special stuff to do it. You just need yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess ideally you can even do it when you're driving.
Well, they don't recommend it though.
Yeah, you do need to focus though, driving.
I do have one thing I give people to do. If people are anxious, a lot of times they'll hold their breath and they'll do this. And so I encourage everybody at a stop sign to see if they're breathing and to drop their shoulders. And then just to feel your breath as you drive.
Yeah.
But not meditate when we drive.
Yeah, you still need poor choice of words, but
right.
Still need to focus though. But just minding the breath though is enough though to make a difference.
And I've been meditating with a group for about 19 years of other colleagues, and one of the things that a lot of us have had happen because of quantum physics is we shouldn't have been able to get to the meeting on time because maybe we got caught in traffic on our way to Providence or whatever, but we'll get there on time. And there's no physical way through time and space that we should have arrived at that time. We should have been 5 minutes late or 8 minutes late.